I'm Rabbi Patrick, and welcome to Kehillah. Did we originally meet during COVID?
I think so, yeah. I think I was back in 2021 or so. I checked out Kehillah on like one of their online kind of sessions where because everything was online at the time,
Right,
and I
yeah.
really enjoyed it and kept coming back because I was like, man, this is kind of fun.
What's that transition like? Because, I understand sometimes the problem for me as the rabbi is that I can't see the forest for the trees, right? Like,
hmm
because my experience of being in Kehillah is a particular type of experience as opposed to a congregant's experience. So, what was that like, that transition from being fully online to quasi online to never online
Um,
for you,
for
you
me
know?
at least, it's been like just a process of slow acclimation to just the community itself. Like it started off as kind of like, okay, this is fun. I can kind of chat. There's some interesting conversations going on, and it's nice little close-knit community. And as things kind of started opening back up, and got closer to being in person, it was a really enlightening experience to kind of slowly feel like, okay, I'm welcome here, and there's a space for me, and it was just kind of a nice, like gradual introduction to like the intricacies of the Kehillah community, where I didn't feel so like overwhelmed by, oh, so many new people. Oh, where do I start talking? It was kind of an interesting like inroad so I felt less like, oh, I'm just kind of taking up space, huh? And more,
Oh.
oh, I'm part of something.
Wow. Oh, so it's kind of like because we kind of gradually made our way from online to in person, it's almost like the acclimation was a little bit easier. Is that kind of what
Y-
you're saying?
Yeah, at least for me, it felt like a little easier to deal with like my neurodivergence and other stuff to kind of navigate. Okay, I can talk in this kind of space. I can kind of get an idea of what the rituals to expect are. And since I was in the process of learning like my about Jewish stuff anyways, it was a nice like on ramp to kind of ingratiate myself into like some sense of like, okay, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I always think that like that's something that I don't want to say uniquely good at, but I think we should take pride in that we are very good as a community at being like one big intro to Judaism class.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's
Would you?
definitely like very welcoming and very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just it's a nice way to feel like, oh, I don't need to know like a crazy amount of stuff. I don't need to know all this ritual. I just need to show up.
Yeah.
And it's really nice for that.
You know what I learned about you over Sukkot that I didn't know is that you're very good at tending to a fire.
Yeah, that's something I picked up living out in the countryside in West Virginia. It's one of those things where you have to learn how to kind of tend fires because that's really the best way to dispose of a lot of stuff is throw it in the fire. Especially when you have so much brush and so much just general plant life, you kind of like, well, got to do something with it.
So, how long did you live out there?
Most of my adolescence, so about like a decade or so.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay, gotcha. When did you move to Richmond?
Um, Around 2019.
Okay, so you had only been in Richmond for a couple of years by the time that we all connected with you.
Yeah, definitely. I was only like really around Richmond for a little bit, and then the pandemic started, so I kind of got stuck in for a while. And in that time period, I kind of found myself seeking some spirituality and comfort, and that's how I kind of wandered towards Kehillah, was just there's all these different communities doing Zoom services. This is a great opportunity to just poke my head in and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you think about bailing on Richmond when COVID happened? Because I could imagine like maybe this wouldn't be right for you, but I could imagine for myself that the opportunity to run back to the countryside and just kind of wait out COVID in the woods would be like weirdly appealing to me.
Um, Honestly, not particularly. I like
Yeah.
the access to like, a hospital and just having a bit of a stable-ish career because like that's kind of a was the big issue and like living out in the countryside for all of its like nice, beautiful scenery and connection to nature, you're kind of very isolated and very much not able to like access a lot of things. And there's not a lot of opportunity to do much in terms of like jobs or whatever. So it's nice to have the community I have here to help me get through it
Yeah.
more than like retreating out to some hermit hole.
I think, I have this sort of very romantic, like with a capital R sort of sense of what West Virginia could be. Because I feel like it's pretty out there, and the whole state, I feel like probably with the exception of Morgantown, could probably be like a natural or a national park. But
Yeah.
I also sort of know about myself that when I was excuse me, in college, I was a fan of Thoreau and the Transcendentalists, and the idea of sort of living in my own Walden Pond was kind of weirdly appealing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I won't deny that it's definitely an amazingly beautiful place, and there's a lot of like scenery and space to kind of think about stuff. But as like a place to like live,
Right.
it's very detached and very much sometimes a struggle to kind of feel like, wait, am I part of something?
Yeah.
Or are there people out there for me? And that was kind of, I guess, my biggest issue as, especially as like a queer person, is just like there's so little support and there's so little feeling of like solidarity. It's like very kind of like, in its own way, soul crushing, where it's just kind of
Wow.
like this feeling of like not just isolation, but feeling of just like nobody cares
Yeah.
because I mean, the traditional like thing is it's flyover country. It's full of rednecks. Nobody should worry about them people. And it's like
Yeah.
there's plenty of people who don't have backwards politics or whatever you want to call it there, but it's because it's so spread out. It's really hard to build any sort of community solidarity or even find like Jewish community or
Oh,
other stuff.
certainly. Yeah, certainly.
And
You have to go basically to, isn't it Morgantown? Isn't that the big college town?
yeah, Morgantown is one of the big
Yeah.
college towns. The other one is probably Charleston with and
Yeah.
Huntington with Marshall.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
there's a few smaller colleges too. But yeah, they're not really college towns so much as just towns that
Towns
happen to
with
have
colleges.
colleges. Well, yeah, because the only
Yeah.
reason that they're even a town is that they have a college. Otherwise, they'd
Right.
be villages.
Right. Yeah, no, there's a lot of places like that. I feel like in rural areas where you have these historic colleges, and it's kind of, from what I understand, it's a little bit concerning because a lot of those smaller colleges aren't getting the students that they used to because people would rather go to a bigger university that has more resources and courses and whatever. So some of these towns that are almost defined by the college, they're like kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, that's definitely been a problem especially in West Virginia. There's a big both a brain drain problem and a
Yeah.
retirement home problem of a bunch of seniors moving, like my parents, to there, and a bunch of people my age, Gen Z, millennial, what have you, leaving because there is no opportunity. The colleges that teach the courses people want aren't in West Virginia. More
Sure.
even WVU only offers so many classes, so then you
Sure.
have to travel out of state to get like a really decent IT degree or whatever, for example.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
yeah.
it's just one of those things where it's like it's really hard to because the infrastructure has been so neglected. It's a lot of the economy is going out of the state but not coming back in. So you end up with this cyclical problem of there's never enough to go around, but because of that, it makes the what is left so much more competitive and so much more like strained because it's like
Yeah.
trying to make it work with less people with and it just doesn't, the economics don't work.
Sure. Yeah, no, that I think that's a really fair point. Yeah, it's all of these. There's all of these places now. Italy, I think, has probably stabilized a little bit. Japan has this problem of you have negative population growth, and then the population you have is elderly, and yeah, so that's a challenge. But so you moved here 2019,
Hmm.
and you kind of like reemerge, I guess. All of us reemerge out of COVID around 2021, 2022. So um what do you think are the things that people don't know about you at Kehillah, right? Like I had no idea that you were great at managing fire, you know. Like what are the, what are the things about, Arianna that we don't know about yet?
I mean, I guess one of the things that I'm not sure has come up too often is like I'm very big fan of just music in general, and I love just all the different kind of songs and performances and everything else. I'm very much the type to kind of just try various things just to kind of see how it goes. So I've been kind of like trying to figure out like what sort of instrument can I learn? What sort of thing can I do to kind of
Oh,
contribute musically or creatively in general? Because for me, it's like one of my like favorite things is to see how different expressions of music and song kind of come across. Because that was, I guess, something I was talking about with the Rebbitzin yesterday. Um, like, it's kind of interesting how the same prayer can have different tunes set to it because, like, the song itself is less important as much as it is, like, making sure the melody matches the words kind of thing. So you can kind of tweak it based on like how well you can sing or what you can play,
yeah,
and it's kind of cool.
that's a challenge because I know I had an experience once where someone asked, this was in a previous congregation, someone asked for more traditional service. And so Rebbitzin actually led a conservative service for what amounted to a reform, community, and thinking that when they said traditional, that's what they meant. And then later they came up to me because no one sang, like no one participated. They just kind of sat there and watched. And so I went up to some people and I was kind of mad. I went up and I was like, "What's the problem?" Right? And they said, "Well, we don't know those songs." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? They're prayers. Like you asked for traditional. This is traditional." And they said, "Yeah, but when we said traditional, we meant the things we know." And I was like, "Oh, that's right. So for you, traditional is like the Shema, Michamocha, Adon Olam in the melodies you know, but then also a bunch of like reform readings that are, responsive and, stuff like that. So traditional doesn't mean traditional, it means what we know from somewhere else, and melodies being one of them because they don't know the
Yeah,
words. They just know the melodies. Like they don't know what Don't Alam, but they know blah 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 blah. And if you do, blah 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 blah, like they don't get it. They're like, "What is
yeah.
this?"
I was just thinking like they whoever came up with Torah chanting being like kind of set to kind of a melody of like I'm like they that's genius because that's the perfect way to like remember such a
Yeah,
long text is just like have it kind of stuck in a melody in your head. Like I still have Vihavta like in my head just
right,
because I could just remember the cadence of it.
right. Yeah, and that's why they did it. The micro was added to give people this ability to be able to chant it, to remember it. And I tell you, I get kind of annoyed with sort of the attitude that people have with that somehow, you know, it is sacred, don't get me wrong. And the one trope that everyone knows is Vahavta, because you're literally chanting it exactly the way that you would do it in the Torah. But that was a tool that was invented to make it easier. It wasn't a tool that was invented to make it harder. And so sometimes with the B'nai Mitzvah kids, I'm just like, look, the point of this was to make it easier. And if it's not easier and you've got 3 weeks to figure this out, then we'll do something else. But what genres of music are you into?
Um, I mean, I really got started with like heavy metal music and punk
Okay.
music.
Like who? Like name some bands.
Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath,
Okay.
Metallica, and then I kind of drifted towards like Rush, Dream Theater, kind of more progressive stuff.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I also then kind of branched out into like kind of death metal-y kind of stuff with like Cannibal Corpse and like
Wow. Haven't heard of that band in a while. Well, I mean, those names, I mean, certainly Black Sabbath, like Ozzy Osbourne of blessed memory since he passed away not
yeah.
too long ago. But so you kind of went from like heavy to almost like more technical. Like, because
Yeah,
like metal to Rush makes sense because there's some like death metal that's, I mean, as intricate and technical as like free jazz and prog rock. So I can see that makes sense.
yeah, I've always just loved the like kind of like the athleticism, the skill, the talent it takes to make all this like crazy, complicated, progressive music. But just as
Yeah.
much as I like that, I also have a fascination with just the plain old kind of bluegrassy, kind of punky, folksy kind of stuff because there's an interesting edge and art to that as well because it's hard to kind of capture that energy without kind of being just genuine and authentic. And like
Hmm.
I don't know, I have this spectrum of taste where I started with metal, but in exploring the kind of more technical side, I've come to appreciate a lot of those kind of overlapping genres of like ska and jazz and everything else.
Ska. Wow, my goodness. Yeah. When is ska gonna make yet another comeback? Because I feel like the comeback happened when I was young. So like the 90s and the 90s. It
When
came back in
Streetlight
the
Manifesto
90s.
puts out a new album.
Right, yeah. So it came back in the 90s and then the early aughts. And yeah, with Streetlight Manifesto being one of them. And then like the older guys started coming back, like Real Big Fish, Voodoo Glow
Yeah.
Skulls. Shout out to Voodoo Glow Skulls because I used to go hang out at a I used to hang out at a skate park in
Ooh.
Arizona that when I lived there for like 9 months, and I used to go hang out at the skate park, and one of the guys from Voodoo Glow Skulls was the owner, and they would put on shows on Fridays and Saturday nights, and we used to stand in line in this tiny little town I lived in, and there was only one of each genre of person who like was in that community. So like you had the one ska kid, you had the one metal kid, you had the one like mod kid, which was me. The one like mod, not mod, but like kind of mod garage rock guy. And then like you had, the one, Christian punk kid. And then you had the one like kid with a mohawk. It was a era of rough, as they say. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but okay, so ska, I guess probably could make a comeback. It's been a minute.
Yeah, but I think it. I think the youth could get into it, especially like on TikTok, because a big gold trumpet breakdown is something I could totally see trending.
Oh, yeah. I had a buddy say once that he thought ska was never going to come back, and I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "It's an economics problem. It requires too many people on stage to do it well, which means more band members you have to pay. So like the future is just going to be people DJing and that's it." And I was like, "Yeah, that actually I could see that. I could see that being a thing." And now all the dance clubs probably just have YouTube playlists or not YouTube playlists, Spotify or whatever,
As far as
iTunes.
I understand, like live performances are kind of on the rise because people are tired of hearing kind of like stuff on streaming. They want to get an actual performance and pay artists directly, kind of thing, where they can.
I think you're right about that. Certainly for bigger shows, like certainly for like definitely those bands that you were mentioning earlier, like definitely for like a Metallica or a Cannibal Corpse or definitely those people.
Oh yeah,
I
Iron Maiden has an amazing live show.
do they really?
Yeah, like they have some of the best crowd work in the business kind of thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I never saw them because like the clubs that I played were nothing, right? They were like
Yeah, yeah,
tiny.
yeah.
I think the maximum venue size I ever played was maybe like 500 or something. But that doesn't mean I played in front of 500 people. That's just the largest room. Um,
Yeah.
and then when I worked in clubs, the maximum was usually around 1100. So yeah, so I never got to see the like really, really big shows, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I've
Uh,
heard the problem is the tiny clubs are all closing, and so it's consolidation of power now, which sucks.
yeah. I did see a show recently in Richmond that was really fun.
Who'd you see?
The band's called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Okay, what's that about?
Um, they're like a metal question mark band. I say question mark because they kind of just are all over the place. They put out
Okay.
like 25 albums in a decade.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and like they go all over the place from like microtonal funk, like folk rock, to
Okay,
like electronica, to like kind of jazzy stuff,
interesting.
and but also like the heavy metal. So it's like they just kind of do whatever they want, and every album you're just kind of like, wait, this is a tone shift. This is like
Wow.
rockabilly, like mid 50s kind of like
Okay,
classic rock, and then
right.
it was like their last album, but the album before that was an electronica album, and the album before that was like heavy metal, and the album before that it's like they put out 2 or 3 albums a year, and it's just like you get like maybe a couple months to listen to it, and you're like, and the concerts are the same way. It like
Wow.
bounces around between like these like kind of big chunky metal riffs, and then they roll out a bunch of synths and just jam for a bit, and then they go into like a folk kind of a long, like folky kind of melody, and like put a bunch of songs together, and then they go into a huge breakdown into like the big metal like
Wow.
finale, and it's
Okay.
just like,
Huh.
whoa, there's so much going on. And like the
That's
pit, like
interesting.
the mosh pit was also great because it would kind of just they would like the energy would kind of like flow back and forth between these like slow instrumental parts, and they would like watch the mosh happening and just kind of let it build up and build up and build up till they're like, y'all ready? Boom!
Wow. Huh.
And then
That's awesome.
it went crazy, and it was great.
Yeah, I hope that you're right that we're going to get there's this everything in sort of the world is dividing into two. Like the middle is sort of disappearing in a lot of ways, but I hope that because of AI and because of the past few years of everything being so tech oriented, I'm really hoping that you're right that what people will do is they'll say, okay, yeah, on the daily I'm going to consume a lot of AI slop and I'm going to listen to streaming that isn't a real band, it's like fake or whatever. um but then I'm going to actually go to shows. Like I know a friend of mine has bought tickets for like all of next year because that's like her form of self-care. So like I'm hoping you're right that this means that artists will see their fans in person more. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, I think that is a big factor to what's pushing people towards like seeing real bands and real shows kind of thing. It's just like people are tired of being like, oh, this isn't even a real thing. I
Right.
want actual people. I want an actual community. I want something in front of me that I could
Right.
point to and be like, this is a real person.
So what you're really saying is that Kehillah needs to become a microtonal death metal band, and then
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
attract large numbers of people to come around, right? While we give away Walmart gift cards to people who are losing their SNAP benefits. Yeah, there you go.
Uh,
That's a project.
a microtonal death metal klezmer band.
Oof. Okay. To be fair, and you probably have heard all of them, there actually are like, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are a few Yiddish metal bands.
Oh
We have,
yeah, that's definitely quite a few Yiddish punk and metal and
yeah.
folky kind of bands, and it's like really cool.
Yeah, I was a friend of mine likes to we're like in a group group text together, and she likes to share all of these different things. And I found a Breslov Hasidic metal band and shared it with her, and I was like, I felt like I one upped her. Shout out to Julie. Like, I think I kind of one upped her by having something that she didn't know about. But yeah. So yeah, we should really think about that. We should really up the metal game at Kehillah. I'm not a metal dude. I'm a old garage and punk rock guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
really don't like. I feel like metal. I mean, metal kind of won. Like, metal beat us. There is no garage rock scene anymore. It's over, but a lot of those bands became electronic acts that I used to listen to. And then I think Jack White's the only person who's still like, and even he's changed a lot over the years. So I think my genres have disappeared.
Yeah, but
Rock and roll is
that's,
over.
I mean, that's all music. It's a
Yeah,
ebb, it's a flow. There's
fair enough.
always like new genres popping up and people taking the old and making it new again.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of garage bands out there. They're just kind of on the smaller scale kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. I'm also not like looking for it either, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm not out there trying to like go to shows and see stuff. And the last time I went to a show, I went with a friend of mine, and it was total like old guy stuff. We got an Uber so that we didn't have to drink and drive, of course, because you don't want to do that. And then he ended up getting car sick on the way to the restaurant, and we had to bail on the night. So it was like, okay, awesome. I guess I'm not meant to go out anymore. So I don't know, but
Yeah, you get to a certain point and you're like realizing, oh, I can't really party like I used to.
I mean, in his case, certainly. Apparently, he has vertigo though, so he was taking a risk not driving anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
poor Jason. But yeah, so okay, so you're obviously a music person. So we definitely need to get more people who are into music so that we can up that game here at Kehillah. But is there anything else about you that you feel like people don't really know about you yet?
Um, I guess, I think for me, it's like if I had to share something, I'm very much, I try to do what I can to look out for others.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm always kind of trying to listen in and try to figure out like if there's anything I can do to help others because like I know I can only do so much, but it feels nice to be connected and
Yeah.
caring and try to reach out and be like, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Do you need somebody to just listen? I can try to because the biggest resource I have being like out of a job currently is I have
Yeah.
all the time in the world and I try to offer that to others to be like, hey, I can be an ear, I can be supportive, and I have time to
Right.
just spend if you need it. And I know people get busy a lot and it's hard to make time, but I do what I can to just be available and be present. And I hope that, you know, people can, know that I am out there and trying to be, supportive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. You and I've talked a little bit about the idea of a person who's like neuroatypical and what that, experience is like. So
Mhm.
do you find that the way that you can help, or the way that you listen, is maybe in some sense unique compared to a neurotypical person? Or like, does your experience as a helper work a certain way that's maybe a little different than
I
maybe a neurotypical person?
I think I would say so, yeah. At least for myself, I tend to pick up on some of the subtle things people don't realize that they're maybe doing of shuffling their feet or like maybe like putting themselves like in a defensive kind of pose. Like I try
Uh-huh.
to I don't necessarily try to fixate on it and like call people out, but it's something I notice sometimes that people have tells of like when they're actually like feeling upset or doing something differently, and it's comes from like I guess a history of trying to understand others and trying to make sense of the world. So like am a bit more sensitive sometimes to just like the little shifts in mood and tone and behavior, and that kind of can be a blessing and a curse. Where sometimes is a mixed signal of like, hey, like I can kind of feel the vibes shifted. What's going on? Versus sometimes I could tell the vibes shifted, but there's not much I can do, and then it's like uncomfortable.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, and I think that's a really valuable idea is that you do just like you were talking about this idea of you catch on to things, right? Like the shuffling feet and what the tells, like you called it, right?
Yeah.
And then I've noticed, and you and I have talked about that it's like what do you do with that? Like what am I supposed to almost like what am I supposed to do now that I've seen this, like, or is the conversation over now and then how do I transition to the next thing, or
Yeah, how
am
do I
I
not make it a
talking,
big deal?
yeah, or like am I talking too much, am I supposed to stop talking, how do I know when it's time to stop talking, or things like that.
Is this
And
person being nice to me because they like me, or is it they're being nice to me because they're being polite, or they're being nice to me because they're trying to get something out of me? Kind of
yeah,
parsing.
that's got to be a little bit stressful to feel like you kind of are trying to, um, I don't know, sort of translate the world into something that works for your mind. Or maybe that's the wrong way of putting it.
No,
Maybe
translate
is is,
I
is
think, an
that,
apt metaphor.
oh, is it? Okay. So like
Because
you, yeah.
there's two different kind of like I guess things going on, and it's funny how like more current research on like autism and ADHD has shown that autistic and ADHD people talk to each other really well. It's just
Yeah.
from neurotypical to autism where these like communication barriers pop up because it's like
Right.
like you said, a different language, it's a different culture, and you hit these barriers of like frustration and like confusion because it's just different fundamentally. And there's definitely ways to translate those things, but you have to understand that there's translation needed, and that's part of the problem. It's kind of like having two different dialects of Yiddish that are right next to each other and trying to figure out like, okay, but are you the north or the south kind of thing? Like, I need to know who
Gotcha.
I'm talking to so I can give you the right
Yeah.
advice.
So what are things that you think neurotypical people could do sort of in conversation with you or in social experiences with you that would help with that translation process, right? Because it is tough because it is in some ways like learning another language. So what are some things that would help with that translation? Not for you specifically, but maybe or,
I
or just in
mean,
general for like if you have people who are neuroatypical in your life or in your workplace, what are some ways to kind of break down the language barrier, so to speak?
I think the best thing to do is to just, well, ask the person, like, what sort of things would help them. But at least for myself, as like maybe sort of a rule of thumb, generally I much prefer direct communication and just being kind of blunt with me because sometimes I am bad at picking up, despite being attuned to all these signals, it creates a lot of noise. So
Oh
sometimes I
yeah.
need somebody to kind of cut through it and just be like, hey, you need to stop doing this because other people are finding it disruptive. Or, hey, you need to, this is what's going on. We're going to be doing like services soon. I need you to stay in the dining room because I don't want you wandering around and distracting people. It's like, okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. Yeah.
for me, it's just like I prefer very clear instructions and directions and to have things explained in a way that like makes sense to me. And sometimes that requires a bit of rephrasing, sometimes because of I have sometimes a bit of a literal brain, but
Okay.
also it's just generally just having the patience to kind of probe and figure out like, hey, what do you need? How can I best make this work for you? And because for the most part, most neurotypical people want to be included and want to feel like they can participate. Sometimes maybe they don't, but they will tell you that as well, where it's just like, yeah, I'm not actually that interested. They'll be kind of blunt about it. And
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, I think it's useful to just be patient and just be like, hey, what are the tools that I can use to make this more effective and try to be accommodating where possible. Because like at the end of the day, each person of like their neurodivergence is kind of unique, and they're gonna have unique set of needs, and sometimes they will clash. So you're going to
Yeah.
have to like navigate that as well. But at the
And
end of the
yeah.
day, it just kind of comes down to like working where with people where they are and meeting people where they are, kind of like you would do with like anybody's sort of politics or anybody's sort of like religion, where you're like,
Right.
there's definitely going to be some friction here, but I'm going to make it work because I care about you as a person.
Yeah, and and I would say definitely for me the sort of bluntness stuff is actually very hard because growing up with a mom from the South and spending most of my life in the South, we don't speak in that kind of Northeastern, blunt, direct way. And so it's sometimes hard for me with neuroatypical people in my life to remember that it's not rude. Like, it's not rude to say, stop talking. But to everyone else in the room, it's going to look like, wow, you're a real jerk. You just told that person to sit down or stop talking or redirect or whatever. So that's sometimes a bit of a challenge. But I what I
Yeah.
appreciate about you is that you're trying to open the door to that. You know what I mean? Like, you're telling people here right now, like, it's okay to do that. It's not when you translate it into Arianna language, it's not rude. Like, the cultural difference is meaningful and
Hmm.
acceptable, which is great. I think that's a really valuable thing that you're doing.
I think the most important phrase I've heard to help it kind of contextualize this is that kindness is not nice and niceness is not always kind.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Because
definitely.
like you can be polite and like genteel, but like that doesn't necessarily mean you're coming from a good place. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the nicest thing to do. Sometimes that
Right.
bluntness, even if it seems rude in the moment, I think can be nicer than dancing around it and just being like, hey, don't do that, hey, you need,
Right.
like, because that
Right.
gentle prodding doesn't always work, and it can make
Right.
things, I wouldn't say worse always, but like it's sometimes you just kind of need to cut to the chase, and sometimes you just need to be like, hey, I care about you, and that's why I'm going to be a bit blunt here, kind of
Love
thing.
it. Love it. Love it.
it,
Well,
it's
with
it comes up a
yeah.
lot of the Talmud, honestly, where it's just like sometimes you just have to be like, hey, no, just no.
Rabbi says no. I love it. All right. Well, we're gonna leave it at that. So thank you, Ariana. Appreciate your time and
Thank
see
you
you
for
at
having
Shabbat.
me.
Don't run off just yet. I have a few things for you. Listen, we have got a latke making class with me, Rabbi Patrick, Tuesday, December 9th. Address to be provided, but it's going to be in Midlothian. So very excited about that. Come make three different kinds of latkes, three different kinds of sauces. They pair really well together. And yes, gluten-free, vegan options available. Love to have you at that. Great opportunity to hang out with some people, learn a little bit more about Hanukkah than the story that you were told as a kid. So that is Tuesday, December 9th, followed by Friday, December 12th, Shabbat dinner and service at my home. Hey, maybe I'll take some of the lessons from the Latka class and apply that into the dinner. But it's going to be lovely again here at our home. And also, yes, it's going to be a big weekend of being at our house. Shabbat Torah study at our home, bagels, lox. We're going to study the Torah portion. You know the drill. So, lots of opportunities to learn, lots of opportunities to connect, have a lot of fun. Also, because we're talking about like latkes and things like that, we have to talk about the 8th annual Hanukkah party, which is at Art Factory. Cannot wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday, December 20th, 5:30. And listen, you need to help Jessica Borda because she is the coordinator for this thing. So if you're interested in volunteering, we're not asking for a lot. Just come set up the Judaica table, help us with the menorahs, help us put together all the art stuff, put out the food, that kind of stuff. Set up, cleanup, easy, easy stuff. But we need your help to do it. So reach out to rabbi@rabbipatrick.com. I'll get you in touch with Jess, but we would love to have your help. Again, 8th annual Hanukkah party at Art Factory. Help comes from you, from Jessica, and with some support from the National Center to Encourage Judaism. So love to see you there. Thanks, friends.